Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. This is the big match preview. Hope you guys are well. My name is Louis Mendez. On this week's show, we will, of course, be gearing up for Saturday's trip to Reading as the Addicts look to continue their 100% start to the League One season, but also we will be looking ahead to the closure of the transfer window as well, which slams shut tomorrow evening. So who better to have on the show, of course. Top right, Transfers Tash, how you doing?
Struggling to get my mute button off there. Hi guys, you all right? Good evening. Yeah, Transfers Tash is might be in hibernation still, I'm sorry to say, but I'm good. It's good to be back on the pod, and yeah, it feels a bit weird, doesn't it, really? Like, coming off the back of a clean sheet and 3 clean sheets for that matter. But yeah, good to be back.
Good stuff. Yeah, really looking forward to all the little transfer nuggets you've got for us there, Tash. I set Tash a little task just to go away and just bring us all the transfer news. So Tash is going to give us all that in the next few minutes, if there is any. And also, bottom of the screen there, Mr. Lewis Cat. How you doing, Lou? Have you got any transfer news while we're here?
Sadly not, mate. No, Tash is the specialist when it comes to transfers. I just wait back and wait for the rumours. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be another fun away trip. It's a big attendance again as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to.
Yeah, certainly is. So as I said, we'll be looking ahead to the Reading game later on in the show. Second half of the show, we're going to hear from Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals as well. He's going to tell us all about Ruben Sellers' side ahead of our trip to the, I think, Select Car Leasing Stadium it is now, or the Madstad is what most people like to call it. But in the first half of the show, as I say, we'll concentrate on what we do know transfer-wise. Obviously, Alan Campbell came in at the start of the week on loan. We'll hear from Nathan Jones about his arrival shortly. We'll discuss what other rumours there are out there, if there are any, which I don't think there are. Leaburn back in full training. We'll have a little chat about that change as well in the managerial team, which we'll discuss later on in the show. Make sure you get involved. Good evening to everyone who's joining us live in the chat. Sam, the first one in there, saying evening all. Even though it was a bank holiday on Monday, it feels like it's taken far too long to get to Saturday. He's also asking what's going to happen with next Saturday with the Rotherham game with the internationals. As it stands, it's on. I think Nathan would like to play it, is what I understand, but a final decision hasn't been made yet. We have to know if we're going to get enough call-ups, which we don't know either way yet as well. So that's the answer to that. Yeah, James is in there saying he's got his tickets for Reading as well. Nathan Jones is our hero. We've certainly been so far this season. Well, let's hear from our hero, shall we, Nathan? As we said, the closure of the transfer window comes tomorrow. And Nathan Jones sat down earlier on for his press day, and Terry asked him, all the pertinent questions you get when you get towards the end of a transfer window.
You've added Kahim Dixon and Alan Campbell to the squad, making it 9 new signings now, with only a few days left, obviously, of the transfer window. Do you think that's our business done, or are you hoping for more activity in there?
No, look, until we cannot do anything else, we're always trying to improve the squad in some way, and we want to do that. There's a few little things we need to do, streamline one or two, and then hopefully add a little bit more quality, because all we're doing now is trying to add quality. I mean, Kahim is slightly different to Alan Campbell in terms of where he is in his career and where he is in his development, but he's a real exciting attacking player. And Alan Campbell's someone I know, I trust, that's done exceptionally well For me, for the clubs I've been at, and for the structure I play, and obviously even at a higher level. So I'm excited about what he can bring.
You've touched on it there that really Kahim and Alan are probably both ends of that experience spectrum. Do you see them both, though, making an impact this season?
Absolutely. I mean, Alan immediate and Kahim will be a work in progress, but we're excited about what we see from Kahim and day in, day out in training. We'll integrate him with the development squad first in terms of match minutes, and then, when he's ready, we'll expose him.
There we go. That's Nathan Jones briefly talking about transfer situation with Terry earlier on today. I think we should go with what we know has happened so far, Tash, because if we're being honest, there's not much in the way of rumours out there in terms of additionality at this moment in time, because we've done a lot of business very early. But what we have done is secure Alan Campbell on a season-long loan from Luton. Unsurprisingly, because Nathan's chosen to work with a lot of players he's worked with before and had great success with before. I mean, he's only 26, comes into that midfield, an area of the pitch where, as we're getting to learn a bit about our playing style and what we're looking like this season, I think we've looked quite good in there and so far. But there's no harm adding a bit more competition in that part of the pitch, and competition that's done very, very well for Nathan Jones before.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we love signing a Campbell on loan, don't we? Hopefully this one will be more successful than the last. But yeah, obviously, and we got Louis Watson from Luton last time. And I remember raving about him on the podcast, being like, I think he's great, he's going to do well. And then unfortunately it didn't quite pan out that way. But, with Nathan Jones in charge, I do believe that I trust this transfer more than the last ones. He had experience in the Championship now with Millwall. I saw mixed reviews from Millwall fans. But then when I asked for the opinion of Luton fans, one of them told me that Campbell would happily slide tackle his nan if it meant he could win the ball. So it sounds like a Nathan Jones type of player to me. I don't think he's going to be someone that necessarily breaks straight into the starting 11, because, as you touched on, like, that midfield is pretty great at the moment. Got not many complaints about it. But yeah, again, as you said, it's always nice to have those bodies in there, because, I think last season, we were unlucky to lose Mars Leaburn and stuff to injury. So we don't want any of those things to come back and bite us if our squad isn't deep enough. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously Nathan Jones said that he didn't want loans, but I think that was more in the case of, we don't want to bring through young talent. Like, I don't think he's interested in bringing in like a Jez Ratsaki, because he's like, well, why would we develop other people's players? Which I understand. We've got a good enough academy to do that ourselves. But I think it's no secret that there's a few people still in the squad that we haven't managed to shift, namely Scott Fraser. So it's not surprising then that we are turning to the loan market. And, if he can come in and do a job for us, and he's looking for that first team football and he enjoys playing under Nathan Jones, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, evening to Callum as well. It says Nathan Jones must have said some interesting stuff to Campbell to make him want to come straight away, and he certainly did come straight away. Obviously down to SE7, which is great in that midfield. All Hell Let Loose is asking if Alan Campbell is match fit. Well, I don't think his nan will be if he's been slide tackling him. But John's saying it'd be interesting to see where Campbell fits into the side. I don't think I'd want to drop Coventry for him. How do you see him fitting into this midfield three, Lewis?
Yeah, it's difficult to squeeze him in straight away, that's for sure, because, we're off the back of 3 positive results, 3 clean sheets. The midfield kind of picks itself at the moment. Luke Berry's obviously come in the last couple of games as well for Kilroy, and it seems like that 3 is a fairly set selection by Nathan at the moment. They all bring something different to that midfield. Alan Campbell is obviously like another player that's a bit of a workhorse. Like, I think he's at Luton kind of raved about for his work off of the ball as opposed to on it. So he's going to be more of like a Coventry-esque rotation, I believe, which I don't think we have like any backup for him. So if we did lose Connor to an injury, like, God forbid we get any more, but like if we lost him to an injury, then Alan Campbell would probably be like the like-for-like replacement for him. He knows where the goal is as well. Like, I've seen a few highlights of him playing for Luton, and he scored a couple of crackers, which is always good. Like, I said the same last week to a couple of mates, like with Greg Doherty. It's nice to see people taking a shot outside the box. I don't think I've seen us have a shot from outside the box for years. So these midfielders trying to contribute to the goals is going to be incredibly important. So yeah, I think if he does slot into the midfield, then it's going to be at the expense of Connor Coventry. But I can't see that being like an immediate change. And if it is going to be a change, then I think Coventry would have to have a serious dip. And I think Alan Campbell will have to really stake his claim. But it's good to have options. It's good to have squad depth. It's an area that is critical in that Nathan Jones system, I think. Like the reason, obviously we've been raving about the defence, keeping the clean sheets and the transformation of that back line. But I think Coventry being sat just in front of them as an anchor, whilst at times can be a bit frustrating, maybe not taking the risky pass forward, does a hell of a lot of work defensively and does some of the dirty stuff that you maybe don't see or don't really appreciate as much because it isn't like Hollywood football. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that will be the position that Campbell would come into play. But I'm happy to see him come in. I think he's a workhorse. I mean, anyone that Nathan Jones rates, for me, I think anyone's going to get behind, because if people are willing to play for Nathan and run through brick walls for Nathan, then that's only going to benefit Charlton. And I think we're seeing that at the moment with the performances that the team are putting out so far.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how he fits in, because it's one of those that if he's as good as he was 2 years ago or whenever previously for Luton, then it sounds like he could comfortably fit in. Like, he didn't have the best of times with Millwall, but I mean, there's not a great deal we can say about that because we weren't there watching him every week. They were a pretty average team last season. I mean, they're always a pretty average team if we're being brutally honest, and well below average at the moment by the sounds of it. But Danny saying it's a long season, we're going to need to rotate. I can see Berry needing to be rested. I think Coventry has the stamina of Dobson and can play regularly. And Callum does say Campbell's out of contract next season, chance to make permanent if we have a good season. He's definitely out of contract from what I understand. I wouldn't be shocked if we hear more about that as the next little bit of time goes on. But we'll find out. Sam saying definitely signing to rotate during the games. And as How's Your Photo says, strength in depth is what this signing is all about. Hopefully that'll be the case. With us, Patrick reckons he'll be an impact sub defensively in a way that Karoy is an attacking midfield sub. So on actual stuff going forward, Tash, as I said, I sent you out on a scouting mission to come back with a list of 15 names that we were going to sign between now and the deadline tomorrow. And unfortunately, you've failed miserably. And it's not really your fault because, I mean, as Richard Corley said on Twitter, there's a possibility that our business is done. I mean, Nathan Jones didn't rule anything out in that clip, but if nothing happens between now and tomorrow in terms of incomings, how are you feeling about the depth of the squad?
Yeah, apologies for the failed mission. As I say, I feel like Transfer Tash comes out in January. She doesn't really tend to come out the summer window. But yeah, I'm pleased. I'm happy with it. I think it's crazy because if you look back, and if this was me in May and you told me, by the way, you're going to lose George Dobson, which we thought we were going to anyway, to be fair, apart from like a bit in the middle of the summer where we thought we might come back and then he didn't. And you're going to lose Alfie May. And then obviously you add that to Corey Blackett-Taylor going as well previously. You go, that's probably the three most positive players that we've had, like bar a few over the last couple of seasons. So, not great. But actually now I look at it and I think I actually wouldn't change it, which is crazy. I think the people that we have brought in, I'm very happy with. Like, you can see that they've all complemented each other very well. We touched on it, the fact that they've actually had a pre-season together. Hallelujah. Who'd have thought a football club could actually do that rather than leaving all the business till the end of the window? So that's certainly made a difference. And all the players that they have brought in, I feel like everyone knows their role. And they all work as a unit. And I think you spoke about it on the last show, but it's not like a team of individuals anymore. I think I'd come away from a lot of games last season where I'd sort of be like, oh, well, Alfie May's man of the match again, or George Dobson's man of the match again. You can't really say much about the others. And it was all sort of focused around them. Whereas I actually came away from Saturday's win over Bolton and I was like, I am actually finding it hard to pick a man of the match. And that's a credit to all of them working together as a team. And yeah, I think all of the people that we have brought in have complemented who we had. I wasn't overly convinced by people like Gillespie last season. I now think he's done a really good job since we started again. Alex Mitchell fits in really well alongside him and Lloyd Jones. Josh Edwards was fantastic. I thought at Wigan he was fantastic. I wasn't at Leyton Orient, but obviously before he who shall not be named injured him, he was doing a good job. So he's impressed me. Luke Berry has impressed me a lot. I think that in some ways isn't surprising given that he played in the Prem last year and he's got all that experience, and he clearly loves playing under Nathan Jones and he's willing to fight for him. But he's really impressed me. I wasn't overly enamoured by Greg Doherty when I first saw him, but after Saturday, I'm convinced I'm on board. As Lewis said, it's refreshing that we have midfielders that actually want to score goals and are willing to contribute, particularly when obviously the first 2 games, I would say I was feeling not overly concerned, but like I was a little bit like, creativity wise, I know it's going to come, but I was slightly worried. I mean, you go from having the league's top scorer to then you've got Ahabme and you don't really know what he's about. Godden's coming in, and EK praying he doesn't get injured. You're waiting on Leaburn. I just didn't know where it was going to go. But knowing that those goals can come from midfield too is pleasing. Ahabme, I think, is the only one where I've got a slight question mark over him. But to be fair, when he came in, a lot of people from other clubs like Ipswich, Cambridge, they all said he's not really going to be the man that's going to be scoring you the goals. He might do, but it's more likely that he's going to be doing the hard work around that, like setting people up, winning balls, like chasing people down. And if Nathan Jones can see that working, then that's great.
Yeah, well, it's working so far as well. A couple of people discussing potential outs. I mean, Jeremy and Shiny Phil both talking about Scott Fraser. I guess the ones that we're going out now, Lewis, I'd suggest the ones that we haven't seen play yet. So you likes of your Terry Taylors, your Scott Frasers. So I'm not sitting here on tenterhooks thinking, oh God, are we going to sell someone really important? Or are we going to lose someone really important? But yeah, I guess there'll be a hope within the club if they can to move on the likes of Scott Fraser, and it may well come down to he'll go on loan somewhere, and we're just negotiating how much of his wages we're still going to be paying.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's critical, really. I mean, not just for us, but for the player. Like, regardless of what you think of the Scott Frasers and Terry Taylors of the world, like they are footballers that are going to want to play football. You know, a footballer's career is only so long, so it's in their best interest that if they're not in the plans here, that they go out and play somewhere else. So, obviously, with Scott, it's a shame because I think when we signed him, there was a lot of hope, and there were points where he was a very important player for us. You know, there were times where he was linked with other clubs, and we were thinking we cannot let him go. Like he's very creative, he's good with the ball, a bit slow, not the paciest of players, but there were some games under Dean Holden at the start where I thought he looked really good, and we just never saw him like hit that consistency you need. And ultimately, I think where he's maybe not the player that gives 100%. I think he can be accused of not giving up his all every game. That's obviously something that Nathan doesn't settle for. Like, I think Nathan demands a hell of a lot out of his players, and I don't think Scott Fraser has that in his engine to do that. So I think, yeah, the best thing is that he does move on. I think he was keen to move back up to Scotland, so if he can get a move up there, it'd be good for him and his family, and that frees up obviously a bit of space in the squad, and I imagine quite a few wages, because he's probably one of the better earners at the football club, given where he came from, and we'd have had to have bought him out of his deal at Ipswich. So, you know, it's a bit of free funds we can maybe free up for, probably too late for this window, but for January, if we're still mounting a challenge, then obviously those funds are going to be welcome. Terry Taylor, I'm still a little bit disappointed that we've not seen more of him, because I think it felt like Nathan had made his mind up on Scott quite early on, but Taylor was out injured, so we haven't really seen enough of him. And there were a few glimpses pre-season where he came in, and obviously it's hard to judge a player fully on a pre-season, but I thought he looked okay. And when I didn't see him involved at Birmingham, I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't really get to see what he was all about. But he's obviously a very young player, came with a high, you know, a really good stock from his time at Burton, and obviously he's come through at Wolves as well. So there's obviously a player in there. The injury really hampered him and his development here. So again, it's clear that he's maybe not going to be part of Nathan's plans. And obviously, with the addition of Campbell and the midfield being what they are now, and having Karoy in there as well, that's a seriously strong set of midfield options. And he's going to be looking, like 7th on the pecking order. So I imagine he'll move on as well. But yeah, I think it's in the best interest for the club as well that these spaces get freed up. But yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a shame that it's not earlier on in the window, so we can look to do some business in other areas. But I think, as Tash said, I think the signings that we have made have strengthened us massively from last year. I think sometimes, a lot of the time it's about quality over quantity. There's no point signing everybody and having a load of unhappy players that can't get anywhere near the starting 11 when you've got a good core of 18 players that are going to give you everything. And I think that's what we're seeing so far. The likability of the squad's going up because you're seeing that clear nucleus of players that are going to be involved and are going to commit and give some kind of contribution to what Nathan wants to do here. So yeah, I think it's going to be good if we get those outgoings done. Maybe that'll free something up for a little last minute transfer Tash deal tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's probably a little bit too late in the window now, but I think it's key that we get these players moved on.
Yeah, because even if it's too late for now, then it will give us some wiggle room in January as well. Joe Puddyfoot, all right, Joe says Fraser could not be further from a Nathan Jones player if he tried. I remember I asked Nathan about Fraser after the game against Dartford, and I just remember a lot of people picking up on the quote saying it's quite interesting where Nathan sort of lists the attributes he wants in a player and then says, if that's Scott Fraser, then fine. And then he's not been seen since. So I'm guessing it's not Scott Fraser in Nathan's view. John says, never really rated Fraser. I can't see what he brings. I'll be pleased to see him go. Yeah, Jake says he reckons Dundee are interested, but only for a fraction of the current wage. Yeah, Dean says there was a great interview with Charlie Mevin on YouTube about why players don't move, etc. And the running of the club. Yeah, I watched that yesterday, which it might give you some insight into some things behind the scenes, and you can maybe learn a bit more about Charlie and the way he sort of speaks and stuff. If you want to watch that, so that's it's worth a watch if you're interested. Certainly, there's bits you may agree with, bits you may disagree with, as all sorts of interviews with owners and stuff go. But it was I think it was on the Business of Football or something like that. But yeah, it's worth checking out if you're interested in looking back at that one. Yeah, I mean, we obviously have to mention that one of the big pieces of news today is that Miles Leaburn is back in training. Which is wonderful news. We don't know exactly what that means in terms of if he's ready for this week or a couple of weeks away still, but he's back in full training. All hell let loose is saying, does that mean we should loan Carnu out to get first team football as well? So I mean, first of all, Tash, how important was it to see Miles back, and especially as Nathan Jones said earlier today, it is like a new signing for him, literally.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we went as long as we did without Miles Leaburn last season. It's such a shame, obviously, after what happened in pre-season to him last summer, and then came back, got a bit of groove going on, and then got injured again, and he missed like 30 games. I just looked that up before we got on air, and I was like, oh, it's a long time to be out injured, particularly when you're his age and you're trying to develop. Like, I mean, for the game time that he has had as a senior pro, you wouldn't know that it was very little. He plays beyond his years, but obviously, for his development, it's key that he gets back out there. But having said that, we don't need to rush him. We've got the options. So in terms of this weekend, okay, he'll probably travel with the squad, but I don't think he'll be involved with the options that we now have. But yeah, it's good to see him back. I think he was at St George's Park over the summer. Like, the club sent him there to go and, get fit again and feel better. So yeah, it's great to see. And I think at the moment, as I've touched on, like, I like Ahedme, like Campbell, but I think in terms of that being our best two up top, I don't think it would be. I think once Leaburn gets up and running again, I would love to see him back there, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, Paul said, I hadn't heard about Miles. I must have been working too hard. That's great news. Well, you clearly are working too hard if you're not looking at Twitter all day, Paul, to make sure you're up to date with the news. Yeah, all hell let loose saying the difference is that we have Dr. Will to keep Miles fit this season. Well, unless he's going to act as his bodyguard as well next time we play Welling or something. Yeah, hopefully that will help. Yeah, Jake saying I would keep Canu. You need 4 fit strikers with League One experience. I think we'd be twisting the definition of fit for 2 of the remaining 5 if we let Canu out. Brazilian saying a loan would be good for Canu's form. but he could really benefit being around experienced pros like Doc, Berry, and Godden. It would feel a bit rare to send him out on loan, considering like I feel like he's had his breakthrough now. Like it doesn't like it's not like Carlton Grant, who was in and out the side and not looking good. I think Dan. I felt like he broke through last season, so maybe he doesn't need a loan as much. But I could be wrong. I mean, Lewis, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough one with Dan because we've obviously recruited heavily in that area with Gas coming in, Matty Godden, and then you've already got your options like TC being moulded into the striker as well, and looking all right in that position. And all of a sudden, Dan's finding himself like 7th in the pecking order once Miles is back fit. Like I agree with Tash. Like Miles for me is like the most important player in that front set of options. Like, I think whilst he's young, as Tash said, he plays well ahead of his years. And I said to my friend at the start of the season, like him coming back will be huge. Like this is going to be a very big season for him. So I think for Dan, it's about his development. Like, do you want to sort of maintain that momentum that he picked up at the end of last season and get him some regular game time somewhere where he's going to kick on and carry on his development? Or do you keep him here and kind of accept that he's not going to be involved as much? It's difficult. Like, obviously, he's one of our own. I'd love him to be around the place. And some of the form he showed the back end of last season, especially, was very impressive. And I think it was clear to see that Nathan rated him very highly. But with those options ahead of him at the moment, I think I agree. Like his breakthrough last season should kind of kick a loan out of the way. But it feels at the moment that he's going to be further down the pecking order than he probably wants to be. And with his progression last season being that breakthrough and seeing him score goals a bit more consistently at this level, would that momentum be halted if we prevented him from getting the minutes he needs to develop? So I don't know. I mean, I think I saw a really good comment from Glove Pup above, which is critical, which is that we don't need to rush Miles back. Like seasons gone by, we've been waiting like, on the edge of our seats for the return of key players, and we've rushed them back too early and we've burnt them out. Chuck's been the prime example. Like as soon as he's been fit, we've immediately stuck him on the bench. We've immediately thrown him on for the last half hour, and he's broken down very quickly. Miles' injury was very serious. To be out at the time he was tough. Like, and especially on a young footballer, there's no need to rush him back while you have the options there. So I think having Kanu in and around the place will enable Miles to be bedded back into the first team picture in a lot more smooth transition, which is probably where Dr. Will comes in, like just managing that injury properly and managing his return properly, which is something we've not had before. So I think Dan will stick around this window, but I think when Miles is fully integrated and back up to speed, given, as long as we don't have any big injuries, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dan maybe go and play his football somewhere else on a loan, maybe January onwards. But for me, it's critical that he keeps up his momentum because I was so impressed with him last season. I don't want him to be sat on the bench not contributing. I want, for his own development, him to be playing minutes and scoring goals, because all the while it's a loan, he's still going to come back to us a better player. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I imagine he'll be in and around the place.
Yeah, I mean, Dean's saying you're better off sending him on loan rather than have unhappy players if they're not in the squad. And Ashley very correctly points out we've got variations, all types of strikers now. Gives us many options over different opponents, and that's definitely one of the benefits with Miles coming back, because Miles is a bit different to all of them, but he's got so many attributes. I was just thinking, like, which player would I say he was a direct comparison for? And I don't think I'd say that for anybody. He's not Chucks, he's not a Hadmay, but he's got bits of both. And like obviously he's not TC, he's not Matty Godden. He's his very own type of striker. But very excited to see Miles back. We should. I mean, if we did have a shopping list tomorrow, Tash, and there was something we wanted to do. I mean, Brazilian says left centre back is a role that he'd have as a priority. He still thinks Gillespie is a bit suspect, and it'd be nice to have a centre back with a bit of pace. I mean, is that an area you'd be desperate to improve? I mean, where else would there be? Maybe left wing back, purely because we've got that injury to Josh at the moment, and therefore it's either Thierry or Teo Eden is not really featured much. Is there any part of the pitch that if you had a blank checkbook and you could go out and sign any player in any position tomorrow that you target?
I think, to be fair, I agree with defenders, like possibly bringing another one in. I think when Lucas Ness went, obviously I totally get that, by the way. Like, he wants first team football. We weren't going to be able to guarantee that for him. It makes sense. I didn't want to lose him because I liked Lucas Ness. I thought he was good. Like, he struggled a bit last season, but I mean, we were pants. So that's him playing in a bad team. So don't think it reflected fairly on him. So sad to lose him, but I do understand it. But it does then make me go, if two of them get injured, what are we going to do? So I think possibly. But touch wood, everything's fine at the moment. So it's not desperate. But the only other ones I think I would do would probably be goalkeeper. Although I think Will Mannion's done well. Like, I'm not taking anything away from him. I think, he's not been like massively tested, but that's a testament to the defence in front of him as well, by the way. Not leaving the goalkeeper in a precarious position like we did a lot of the time last season. But also, I just think, I don't know, I feel like that the defence is fine. I don't think we need to massively change it. But yeah, goalkeeper. Although I think Mannion's fine. I feel like if he was to get injured, you bring in Ash, which is fine. I think Ash can do a job. But I always think it's better to have 3 goalkeepers. Like, it always is. Because say, for example, if Mannion gets injured and then Ash just comes in easy breezy, like, you're not going to have that competition. So I just think it's good to have. And also, we spent the whole summer saying we wanted an experienced goalkeeper. I don't think either of those two are, even though Mannion's probably more experienced than Ash, arguably. We don't have that experience. So, yeah, if you wanted that, I'd say goalkeeper. I know, obviously, we were like linked with Begovic, which was really bizarre. And then now he's gone to Everton and entered the basket case. So good luck to him. But yeah, that didn't happen. And then the only other one, I think, as you said, Louis, was left wing back because, I think Eden is fine if he was to come in. But I think in terms of like a promotion winning side, I'm actually going to say that now. I'm really getting carried away with myself. But if we are aiming for that and all aiming for the playoffs at least, then you need that backup because I think, Thierry Small actually really impressed me on Saturday. I kind of thought like, oh God, I don't know. Like he played against Birmingham, I think, and he didn't look like the player that played last season, and I don't know why. Something just felt different, but he really stepped up on Saturday and said, "Look, I'm going to fight for this spot. Like the person I've been competing with might be out injured, but I'm not going to like rest on my laurels." So that's testament to him, and I thought he played really well. But yeah, it would be good to have someone with a little bit more experience behind him, I think.
Brilliant. Yeah, Chris agrees regarding the keeper. Says Mannion's hardly been tested so far, was well beaten for the Birmingham goal, even if it was a great hit. Still need a decent keeper to compete with Will Mannion. Andrew Roberts saying Darren Randolph is available. Was he the keeper in that PFA team the other day? I can't remember. There was that weird PFA, I've never seen that before, a PFA free agents team the other day. Most of which used to play for us, which says a lot about our recruitment over the years, that none of them can get deals anymore. Joe's saying we could roll out Bob Boulder with our defence this season. Right, one final bit of news today that we haven't mentioned. It's been obvious for a while because he hasn't been in the dugout, but Paul Hart has left the club. So best wishes, obviously, to Paul. Curtis Fleming's going to come in as the new assistant manager. He's obviously stepping up. He's been in. He came in right at the last knock-ins of the Michael Appleton reign, didn't he? As I think first team coach was his official role, but he's going up to assistant manager with Nathan, and James Brain is going to be the first team coach and on set pieces as well. So he came in again sort of March, I think it was, as individual development coach, and now he's stepping up to first team duties and set piece coach as well. So he's going to be the hardest working man in football, actually, Lewis, because for everything that has improved this year, attacking set pieces yet to. But yeah, what were you making of Curtis coming in as assistant boss as well?
I'm really happy with it. I think I really liked Curtis when he came in anyway. Like he came in last season, automatically had to pick up the team on a caretaker basis when Appleton left, and just the way he spoke and stuff, like he just came across like such a lovely bloke, like really nice guy, really likable character. And it feels like him and Nathan have built up a real rapport over pre-season as well. And obviously Curtis is it's well known that Curtis has done a lot of work on the defence. And I mean, look at where we are now compared to last season. I mean, I'm so glad that he's finally seeing, the fruits of his labours, if you like. Like he's seeing the results for the hard work he's put in. Like, as I said on the pod, I think last week we've put one different person in that back line that played in the Bolton game, which is Alex Mitchell. The rest of them were here last year, and we're looking like a completely different force at the back. So that's a real credit to Curtis, and I'm really glad he's been given that role and the recognition that he deserves. And then, James Brain is going to be a very busy guy getting these set pieces done, because there's obviously, it feels like the way we've been playing, we've maybe not seen much of the ball. Like we're kind of, I don't know if it's just the way that Bolton played, and the teams we've played so far have played that way, but we haven't seen a lot of the ball. But what we've done is worked incredibly hard off of it. So when it comes down to opportunities and we get set pieces, you're going to want to make them, effective. You need to, like any club needs to, obviously. But when you're seeing less of the ball, maybe creating a little bit less, then when you have the opportunity to create something from a set piece, you've got to make the most of it. And some of the corners, I mean, Orient was the worst. I mean, some of the corners at Orient were so bad and so wasteful. So James is going to be a busy guy, but it's great. The club are obviously identifying these areas, and they're bringing in the personnel to make these improvements. And I think there were two other additions to the Backroom team today, or promotions. I can't quite remember, but they're obviously identifying the right areas in the Backroom to help, with Nathan. Like, we obviously got a very good manager there, but it's all about the people behind him as well, making sure he's got the support in the right areas, because he can't do it all. Whilst it feels like he's around the training ground and around the stadium like 15 hours a day, he can't do it all. So having people that match his work ethic and his vision, in and around his coaching staff is going to be very critical. And it feels like we're moving together as like one big, well-oiled machine by, identifying these weaknesses in our setup and getting it sorted. So I'm delighted for Curtis, delighted for James, and hopefully we start seeing the benefits very soon.
Excellent stuff. Right, in a few moments' time, we will start to turn our attention to the trip to Reading on Saturday. But they always say give the people what they want. James Mitchell says, interesting though as this is, can we just run the erection services advert so we can have a childish giggle, please? We'll be back in about a minute or so.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the river. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. We're making our way to Reading this Saturday as we look to try and continue our 100% record at the start of this season in League One. It really has been a very, very positive start for us. Not so much in terms of off-the-field stuff for Reading. Now, you may remember last season Matt Lansley came on our show from the Elm Park Royals to tell us about the difficulties they've been having off the field of play. So I'll caught up with Matt again just to try and understand where they are now. We're now joined by Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals. Matt, give us a lowdown on what's going on with Reading at the moment then. I mean, at times it looked like everything was going to be done and dusted by now in terms of the takeover, but the Cohigs, the Wickham guys, they aren't quite in place just yet.
No, I think sadly, everyone always forgets that no matter how positive a takeover is looking, there's one stumbling block in that, and that is the former owner who shan't be named, who just seemingly just tries his best to scupper every single deal and every single chance he's got of trying to get some money back out of the club, which is baffling, to be honest. But we're hopeful that it's only a matter of time. But the problem with that, and just saying it's only a matter of time, is we've not been able to sign any players at all over summer. We're the only team in the EFL not to have signed one player inbound. There was hope that Femi Aziz leaving for Millwall was going to be able to open up a slot to get players in, or a player, as a 1-for-1 replacement. But we're not sure if that's the case. As things stand, no one has come in. So that's really the real kind of kicker with this takeover. I think most people are confident that it's going to happen. Coeg's been at the stadium, he's been at games, he's been very kind of open with fans, and on a couple of occasions now has said that we're days away, but those days have then turned into weeks, and I think it's all lying on the other side. And the Chinese owner not being happy, or just trying to change little bits of the final sale to just try and screw over whoever comes in, to be honest. And obviously that's Coeg. So
yeah, I mean, we went through a very similar process when Roland Duchâtelet sold the club. It felt like it was days away for a long time. Then when it actually came, it came out of the blue, although he did sell it to some pretty dodgy characters. But hopefully, we know that's not the case of you guys, because obviously they've had their time with Wickham. And yeah, so fingers crossed that will get sorted out. I mean, how has that affected then the start on the pitch? You've mentioned the lack of signings. In terms of actual results on the pitch, other than obviously last time out at Wrexham, it felt like it's been a pretty positive start.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things was last season. Obviously, we had a dreadful start to last season. It was, well, woeful, abysmal. You could use so many superlatives to, sum up how bad the start of the season was. A lot was put down to the fact that last season we weren't able to have a pre-season. Ruben Sellers wasn't able to implement his style. He's had that this season, and in the first few games, you've really been able to see that. Yes, we've got the threadest of threadbare squads, but I guess what you can say is those 11 on the pitch, they all know their roles at this point. It's such a simple thing to say, but there was points early on last season where you looked at it and you just looked on the pitch and you thought, some of these players don't know what their roles are. They don't know when to press. They don't know where they're supposed to be playing. It just looked like confusion on the pitch. But the start of this season, Birmingham was a very, very good display for all of 70, 75 minutes. The problem we've got is because of how thin our squad is, and the style of football that Sellers likes playing. It's very high intensity. It's high pressing. That can leave you open then from 70, 75 minutes onwards when you don't have a bench of experienced players to come on. We've got a bench of, our academy players, all but purely because they're the next people up. One of them is a 16-year-old in Garcia. It looks very, very promising, but you don't really want to be having 16-year-olds on your bench. It does get you excited because you think they must have something about them, but yeah, you look at that bench and you just think, wow, that's kind of where we're at, and that really has been the real hindrance. As I mentioned, just the lack of being able to bring anyone in. But on the pitch, Sellers looks like he's doing as good a job as he can, as he's kind of proven that he has been doing at Reading. Really since November last year, or really since he came in, because he came in less than ideal circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, your second half of the season last year was obviously remarkable, including a very comfortable win over us back in Nathan Jones's first game. It's probably normally at the start of a season like this, when we do these opposition previews, we're always talking about what's your expectations or your hopes for this season. I guess that's quite a difficult one for Reading to answer. Maybe if I'd asked you a month ago when you thought maybe everything was just a few days away, then the answer would be very different to what it is now.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans still have quite a bit of hope. Whilst the transfer window, I guess, is still open, there's still the ability for someone to come in and maybe get a few last minute loan signings. I think some fans might still be optimistic of, you know, getting a top 10, potentially pushing for top 6. You know, I think when you look at, you know, the core of the squad, that there's some really good players there. You know, that with some reinforcements, could they push for top 6? I think that would be pushing it personally. But could they be capable? Who knows? I think I say who knows, and only because we've not really seen a normal situation with these players. You know, where they've got reinforcements on the bench to come on, you know, where we've got experienced players to replace our, you know, starting 11. As I say, everyone's always said we've had a good core group of, you know, 11, 12, 13 players, but as we've kind of seen at the start of this season, you get a few injuries. Captain Andy Eardham's injured. Harvey Nibbs is injured for a month. And also at the weekend, we lost Mabadi Kamra, who was an academy graduate, next man up after Femi Aziz. Started the season very well, but is now injured. And now we've got no real identified right winger player playing right wing at Wrexham. Again, 18, 19-year-old academy graduate in Akande. So it's, yeah, like if you were to give me top 12, top 10 right now, I'd still snap your hand off. You know, I think it goes without saying, I don't think many Reading fans are under the illusion that you know, it's going to be an easy season or kind of a normal one. It's funny, we were talking in the preseason how it's probably been the most normal preseason that Reading have had in a number of years because there's not been off the field antics. But the one thing we were kind of waiting on was the takeover to happen, which hasn't happened. But yeah, it still could be anything. You know, I don't think we'll be in threat of relegation. You know, even if, God, I hate saying this, but even if the takeover doesn't happen before the end of the window and we can't get anyone in, I don't think we'll be down near the bottom. I think, you know, we're capable of, even without any signings, finishing, you know, 16th or above in this league, but add a few players and, you know, hopefully we can be looking a bit further up the table rather than down.
Just finally then, obviously I mentioned the last time we came was Nathan Jones's first game. You guys beat us quite comfortably, really. We're a very different side now. How do you see Saturday going?
Give me a point and I'd probably be very happy. Which again, like, I think you've got to be realistic on the situation. You know, I think we were very lucky to play Charlton when we did last season. You know, I think since then, I think you only lost one game in the season last year after Nathan Jones took over, after you played us. Unbeaten this season, haven't conceded a goal. You know, that was always a problem for Charlton. Hasn't seemingly been a problem this season. You know, give me a point and I'll be very happy. You guys will have a good following at us. It should be a good atmosphere. So yeah, hopefully it's a good game and yeah, we can see a good game of football.
There we go. That's Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals. He very kindly spoke to me at the start of the week. Yeah, referencing some of the troubles that they've had, obviously over at Reading. Still no takeover from the co-egs, the guys who were at Wickham. Yeah, and that's causing them some issues. You mentioned that thing with Femi Aziz. I was just reading on the local Reading website there about how that was like an internal screw up, basically. So they thought someone internally got some advice from the EFL and interpreted it that they could sell Femi Aziz and use the money and the place in the squad to get someone else in, but they misread it or misunderstood it. So they've depleted their squad even further, which is obviously the last thing that they wanted to do. Callum says sounds like a perfect opponent for Nathan Jones's Charlton, another winner, perhaps within the last 10 minutes. Brazilian saying, I think Reading could be a bit of a banana skin club in trouble. Nice weather, sellout away end, 3 wins on the trot. It screams of a poor Charlton showing. Now, just before we hear from Nathan Jones, Tash, I mean, Jordan's tweeted, I know it's only 3 games into the season, but have your expectations gone up already, considering the teams we've played and the results? My expectations definitely changed from where I was in the summer at the start of pre-season. It's definitely after the Wimbledon game. Like, you kind of need to see it to believe it, and we've seen probably more than I was expecting to have seen at this stage of the season, with the caveat, as Jordan points out, it's only 3 games.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm the same as you. I think before the season started, I probably would have said, you know, let Nathan Jones settle himself in, get the players he wants, get the system going, and giving ourselves an identity again, which we haven't had for years. And I probably would have said, go for the playoff push. If you don't go up, it's not the end of the world. And I was quite happy just moving in a positive direction. It's hard to judge the beginning of the season because you don't know. Like, I can look at Wigan and only really go off what they were like last year. I could look at Leyton Orient and only really go off what they were last year. You don't really know a lot about teams at this point. What I would say is the only little dent in the massive ray of hope that I have at the moment is obviously the Birmingham game. Now, I know that we didn't start the 11 that we have done in the league. We might not have cared as much about it because we'd rather go on and be better in the league and have that run together and not bother with cup competition. But that did show to me that there is a slight weakness in this team. I hate to be the party pooper, but that there was on that occasion. So in that respect, although I'm yes, we've won 3 in a row, clean sheet, unless we're going to go on some incredible season, at some point that is going to level out slightly in that we are going to concede goals, which I don't want us to, and we probably are not going to win all of our games. But having said that, my expectations going into the weekend, I feel like we'll win. I said before the Bolton game, I said, we haven't won 3 games in a row at the start of the season since Pauli, etc., won the League One title. And people were telling me not to jinx it, and then luckily I didn't jinx it. But I feel positive about this weekend. Unfortunately, as Matt was saying, Reading aren't in a great place, and although I don't think they've had anywhere near a terrible start, I think they've done okay considering their circumstances. I know they got tonked at Wrexham, but they've done okay. I think this year, this light and day from the Nathan Jones' team that went there when he first took over to now, it'll be a different story. And as we've seen with Wigan, we can actually win on the road as well. So that hoodoo's over. So yeah, I feel positive about it.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, Reading draw up at Birmingham on the first day, beat Wigan at home. And then lost at Wrexham last time out. Right, let's hear from Nathan Jones then, looking ahead to the trip over to the Select Car Leasing Stadium.
At Reading on Saturday, the scene of your first game in charge, of course, which sadly ended back in February in defeat. We're a vastly different side to the one that faced Reading then, back in February. It goes without saying that we're all hoping for a different result, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I hope for a different result in the first game, but when you take over and you've got to arrest momentum and turn things round and so on, it was a game that came very, very quickly. It'll be an interesting gauge for us to see, how we've come in 6-7 months, whatever it is, and we're looking forward to that test and put in a wrong right.
They haven't exactly changed their squad a huge amount in the off season, certainly not compared to us. Does that make planning a little bit easier? If you can say it's easy, but it's not. But does it make it slightly more easy?
I have no concern about what Reading have done in the summer or what they're doing. All I'm concerned about is being the Charlton Athletic are the best version of themselves. And if Charlton Athletic are the best version of themselves, then we believe that we're a tough team to beat. We obviously know the injuries that we've got. How's the squad heading into the game? No fresh concerns? No, look, we're in a good place injury-wise. Obviously, we've pretty much got a full squad. There's 1 or 2 with little niggles, but no, it's a really fit squad now. And Josh was a week on from that injury, which wasn't as bad as we'd feared. How's he carrying on? Well, he's the only one really that that's a little bit more sort of midterm and stuff. So he's so much better week in, week out. He has a positive mindset. He has a desire to get back very quickly, and God willing, he will do that. You'll be backed by a huge, almost capacity away following again at Reading, and obviously the 3 wins have helped, but the Valley crowd on Saturday were amazing again, and the players seem to be, and yourself seem to be milking that in, hoping for a special atmosphere on Saturday. I don't think it's milking. I think it's generating something. For me, I've always been a believer in having a rapport with my fans and with the fans that support the club, and giving them something back for what they give us. The crowd have been absolutely outstanding. You can hear it. The Valley felt a really good place to be in that game, and especially when after we scored and when if ever we come under a little bit of pressure, the crowd were there. Everything we did was accentuated by the crowd, and they were fantastic. And then when we got the second, it was electric, and that's the type we want to see. But look, we want the crowd to be at capacity. We want the crowd to get behind us, but we also, we want to rapport with them. We want them to see that this means as much to us as it does to them, and it's very difficult to say more because Charlton fans are very proud in terms of that, but it's our livelihood, and we want them to have a rapport with us. I don't milk it. What we do is we generate. We want to generate momentum, a feeling, an ambience, a culture here that's we're all together, and the crowd have a massive part, and they've been outstanding. They've been outstanding since I walked in the building. They've given me time, they've given me patience in terms of stuff, and all we want to do is give them a little bit back. But we encourage them to come. We want the Valley to be an intimidating place to come to. We want to have an away following. We want to give them good away days. We want to give them amazing home days. And that's a work in progress, but it's also a collaboration between us and them.
There you go. That's Nathan Jones looking ahead to the game with Reading on Saturday. Talking about that special relationship that he's garnering with the supporters and generating as well. Because we've said it so many times about how sometimes as fans you need something on a pitch to get behind, and it's always easier said than done to say, "I support the boys." But when they're playing like they are at the moment, Tash, it makes it a lot easier. As we're saying, like packed away ends on Saturday. I think there's a few tickets left, but I think it'll be best part of 3,000 that's going to be there. Brazilians has pointed out that we do love underperforming with a packed away end, unless it's at Portsmouth. But we're going there in numbers. Let's hope that it will be better than last season, and it will be a fascinating comparison to where we were last season when Nathan went in, when we were shambles at times last season under Michael Appleton. Obviously no one was expecting him to turn it around in 2 days, but the turnaround we've had in, where are we now, 6 months later, I imagine we'll look a very different side on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's no reflection on Nathan Jones because, as you just said, he was only there for less than a week. It's not his fault. But I remember at Reading, I really thought, okay, this is the turning point. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. I'm trying to reassure myself. And I think after that loss, I just thought, we've had it. I genuinely at that point was like, I do not know how we're turning this around because it was that bad. And yeah, as Brazilians has pointed out, we love not showing up in front of a packed away end. And I think just the hype of that day, we were like, yes, it's a turning point. Nathan Jones is here. It's going to be fine. And then the reality was not great. But yeah, I think, as you said, this year is very different. And we're just not a team now. I think we'll turn up to these places and just roll over. I think that is a Charlton of old. I mean, I'll play this clip again on Sunday if it turns out to be that way. But I just don't see us going up there and not doing our best to come away with all 3 points. I don't think we're going to go there thinking, oh, we'll just scrape an away draw and that'll be fine. I think now we've got the momentum. We might as well go with it. And there's absolutely no reason why we can't. And yeah, as we've touched on, if Reading are the type of side to tire in the final quarter, then they're in trouble because Bolton, even at the weekend, when they saw Matty Godden and Chuck Sanike coming on, probably thought, oh God, here we go. So let alone Reading. So yeah, again, I hope I'm not jinxing it, but I do think it will be a different story this time around. Yeah,
Shiny Phil says, my confidence comes from our defensive performances and our unity as a team. So pleased with how we're shaping up, just hoping it isn't going to be the banana skin the Brazilians mentioned it might be. But John says, the way we're going at the moment, I don't think we need to be too worried about anyone in this league. And Austin's asked an interesting question about how long before fans start to come back to the Valley. And it's quite a big question in terms of, when will crowds improve in SE7? That's a long discussion to be had, but success on the pitch will certainly help to bring that. Alan's saying the team is building confidence week by week. I mean, Wabber's making a fair point that at some point we are going to lose. We are going to concede a goal. We're not going to go 138 points and no goals conceded, despite what my graph was pointing out, as Joe mentioned earlier on in the chat. But, hopefully that won't be this Saturday. I'm just briefly, Lou, in terms of team news, sort of picks itself at this moment in time, I guess, in terms of you don't really want to change a winning side. There are areas on the pitch where if Nathan wanted to, there's certainly plenty of quality that came off the bench that could start games, but can you see any changes happening for Saturday?
I don't think so, mate. No, I think you're right. You're not going to change a winning side. I think every setup that we've put out so far has had its strengths. I think TC running at players, tiring them for the time he's on the pitch, and then using that Anike wild card is critical at the moment. I think it's been so effective so far. I think people will want to see Matty Godden come in potentially, but I think he had a bit of a niggle, didn't he, before, which is why he didn't feature. So it's like I said earlier about Miles, we're in a position where we don't need to rush people back. Like, we've got the squad to do it. So yeah, I can't see any changes. I imagine Alan Campbell will be on the bench or something potentially, so might look a little bit different on the bench. But apart from that, I wouldn't change a winning side. I think it's, as you say, it picks itself. And yeah, it's going to be good going there full of confidence. I think, as Tash said earlier, like going there last year was just, I think we were all full of confidence then, but it was a completely different Charlton side. I'm a little bit scarred by that one. But yeah, it does feel like this isn't a Charlton team that are going to roll over. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Saturday and hopefully carrying on this run that we've got going and bringing 3 points back to SE7.
Oh, lovely jubbly. Well, Lucas is predicting another 1-0 on Saturday, says that everyone will be happy. And then Jake says he's at Reading on Saturday and he's doing the big half on Sunday. I hope we exceed my pessimism and start the weekend well. I met Jason Pearce at the big half this time last year and he coached us to a 2-1 win at Fleetwood. Well, good luck with a big half, Jake. Hopefully Charlton will put in 2 big halves this weekend and we can get those 3 points to keep that 100% record going at the start of this League One season. Right, we've run out of time on this week's big match preview. Massive thanks to everyone who's joined us on the show this evening in the live chat or caught up via the podcast or the YouTube channel afterwards. Don't forget to hit subscribe in all the usual places so you never miss another Charlton Live show. Massive thanks to Lewis and to Transfers Tash with no transfers this evening. Good to speak to the pair of you.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys. See you at the Select Car Leasing Stadium.
What a beautifully named stadium that is. Right, I'm Louis Mendez. Massive thanks for listening to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. We'll see you again on Sunday.